This is a representation of the domino effect that could lead to us not surviving as a species. We have on the left side wealthy populations, and then middle class populations, and then marginalized or poor populations, the have-nots, the disrespected, the non-included, the disempowered. As we move across to the right here, we get into challenging survival dynamics. Folks in China that are required to eat animals from the forest. Folks in Africa that are required to eat animals from the forest just to survive. And in other countries where human beings, due to the marginalization of subpopulations, of subgroups, subcultures within any nation, when they become put into harm's way by the dynamic of marginalization and non-inclusion and inequality, that puts them in direct connection with nature, viruses, bacteria, and that detrimental effect can create a domino effect back up the chain, and the wealthy and the powerful and the networked and those in government who are the movers and shakers of our world, they can be directly affected by COVID or by SARS or by not just COVID-19, COVID 20 through 25. I mean, any new virus or bacteria. Does it make sense that this is a dynamic of karma? That if we do not treat each other with love, kindness, care, and equality, that the dynamics of karma or the dynamics of reflective ecosystem process will reverberate back to us, no matter where we are. Certainly the marginalized populations will likely be hit hardest. That doesn't mean that any other population in our world will truly be spared. In this dynamic, there is a process of social identity that all human beings, to one extent or another, tend to identify with. Whether you consider yourself a white male, whether you consider yourself a Hispanic female, whether you consider yourself a Black male, whether you consider yourself an Asian female, there is an associated energy, identity, tribal resonance with that identity process, that social identity process that creates the illusion of separation, of disunity, of inequality, that then takes on a life of its own and recreates our competitive world, our challenged world, our dynamics of ignorance of each other's needs, our seeming incapacity to recognize and care about compassionately the suffering of other human beings. And this same identity process blinds us and obscures us to the pain and suffering of the natural world. This is ego identity and social identity and cultural identity and religious identity and national identity. It is obscuration personified. It is a mechanism of social organization that is profoundly dysfunctional and profoundly wounding. The COVID-19 virus is just a symptom of this. If we don't recognize that and accept that and strategize to resolve that and put our resources and our efforts and our energy to resolving this, to dissolving identity in all of its defunctionalizing and separativeness generating forms and competition generating forms and wounding forms and damaging forms and disunifying and marginalizing forms. If we are unwilling to do that, how do we then unify with equality, how do we then mobilize ourselves and align ourselves and synchronize our activities as a species to serve the planet, to serve each other, to serve spirit? This is where the rubber meets the road. This is profound. This is not a nice to have. This is not a someday nirvana. This is needed. This is primary. This is focused. This is practical. This is grounded. And it will be painful for all involved to meet this necessity in some way, in some moment, and that pain must be squarely faced. If we do not do so, we will remain in the momentum, we'll remain caught up in the tide or the current of tribe or history or religion or gender or projection or bias or prejudice or self-centeredness or the tribal dance will be continued as the Titanic continues to head to the iceberg collectively. This is our moment of opportunity to transcend the misunderstanding of history, of social identity, the misinterpretation, the ignorance, the illusion, the narcissistic self-centeredness of all social identities. We're not judging them. We're not vilifying any social identity. We're suggesting that none of them will truly allow us to unite. We can honor all of them. We can love all of them. And if they remain perceived to be divisions, they will keep us from uniting, and they'll keep us from healing ourselves and each other and really truly understanding each other and loving each other fully and without filter, without condition, without requirement. These artificial separations of human soul process on this planet have been a set of training wheels. They have served a purpose in the past. We can no longer afford their cost. We can no longer afford the burden that they present to the planet and to all humanity. We cannot afford the burden they present to all future generations, our children, and every child born from humanity in the world in the future, and every animal and insect in the world cannot bear the burden of our egoic tendency to operate from ego identity. It just won't work anymore. If we can accept that, fully ground that understanding in our systems, then we can find it within ourselves to take the necessary steps courageously to drop identity, to drop tribe, to drop nation, to drop culture, to drop divisive dynamics of religion or separatist dynamics of religion, and we can unite.